any of you selling in particular with Drupal just the power of integrations or integrating with other systems, kind of like the microservices decoupled?
To a certain extent, but it's kind of more selling them for me on the power of Drupal as an enterprise platform.
Mm-hmm.
And then in that initial requirements gathering process, talking to them about what other ancillary applications and legacy systems I have to tie into. And then once you've identified that, then selling them on the fact that you've already tied it in with Salesforce 5 times, and that's not really that big of a deal anymore, because you kind of know how to do the Salesforce thing. And I'm just, using his example, but I found that when I'm able to speak to the fact that you've already done that integration, 4 times, then it becomes not necessarily a risk.
Right.
Like I remember back in the old days, I would always think that every time I integrated into another system, that was like my largest point of risk on the project was I'm going to plug into something else.
Yeah.
And now if someone tells me I'm going to take Drupal and I'm going to plug that into Salesforce, I go, I don't know, it's probably like, 10 grand, maybe 15, depends on how complicated it is. But my blood pressure didn't raise, at all. Whereas back in the old days with all custom systems, since a lot of that integration wasn't already there and I had to do it from scratch and there weren't modules that did it, it was way scarier. Or like integrating with Facebook Connect. Like the first time I did that, it scared the shit out of me.
Especially a week later when they changed the API.
When they changed the API and it blew up on my face before it was going to go live. You mean that time?
And it was your fault, of course.
Of course. And that did literally happen.
It happened to us all.
We did a project for Unilever and we were launching a Facebook app. And it blew up like a week before the demo.
That's right.
But yeah, it was horrible. But nowadays, like a lot of those pre-written integrations, like I've already done them so many times and they're so mature that it's like, oh, Facebook integration, yeah, whatever, dude. Like, sure, no problem.
One click.
Not quite. Well, I don't know if I go that far. But does that kind of make sense? So during that requirements gathering process, one of the things I tell clients a lot about Drupal too is when you hear me say there's a module for that, you should smile. And when you hear me go, ooh, I don't know if there's a module for that, that means you should frown.
Right.
Because that's what I just did to your budget.
Right.
When I say there was a module for that, I'm going to get it done, and it's going to get done quick and cheap and efficient, and everything's cool.
Right.
But the minute I go, I don't know if there's a module for that, then that means it might take me 100 hours or 200 hours to pull off what you just asked me to do. Whereas I might have done 10 requirements that were all out of the box for the same price as that one requirement, which is going to be custom.
I hate that term, out of the box. I just it drives me nuts.
But you get my point.
I totally get your point, and you live it and etc. We consider ourselves a integration company.
Yeah.
I feel like why people come to us is because we have so much experience in integration. There's other shops that do Drupal. That's not the problem. Frankly, you can get Drupal done in Eastern Europe or what have you. It's the all the integration and the API, and then of course the management side of it is what should you be integrating, what should you be doing. Those are the real questions, and why I think you hire a US-based firm as opposed to some of this just building off of your requirements.
Well, I think, Ron, that for me, the difference, just kind of building exactly on what you're saying, is that the US-based developers have the ability to get thrown a curveball and still hit it.
Right.
Whereas the overseas developers, when you throw them a curveball, they don't know what a curveball is or what they're supposed to do with it. And they just know I was told to do this, and you gave me that, and now I'm completely lost and I don't know how to handle it.
I want it to work.
Yeah.
I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars
wasted
on every country possible to be able to supplement our team, and it hasn't worked for what we do. I think it works excellent for somebody that's got a 3-year roadmap and you got a product and you want that works perfectly. But if you don't know what your requirements are and you need it by November 1st, you got to do it here in the U.S. And you should probably do it pretty local.
Or you need great communication.
I think.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
Just because everybody should hire you, they don't.
Well, it's a pivotal.
Systems integration, though, is like systems integration never actually goes the way it's supposed to.
No.
And that's what I meant by hitting a curveball.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Like that systems integration, it's always like we planned to have that hook up to that, and then you find out that, oh shit, it's not going to work like that.
Yeah.
And and the US guy can hang, and the other guy doesn't.
Well, it's not their fault either. We've just we just have a better communication process.
Right.
We've seen it a little bit more. This isn't I don't think this is a U.S. versus, offshore conversation. There's just a certain element of what it is that we do best and why we're up here talking about it.
Yeah.
I just, I think that as we look at where we're headed and where Drupal is headed, I think this move into Drupal 8 was really, not that it's surprising from Dries, a visionary move, because where we could go that none of us have even, not really thought out yet. He's probably 10 steps in front of us, right? And he knows where we're gonna go. We all just need to catch up. And this move to a symphony base and a different object-oriented function is just going to be able to get us there. And I think the face of Drupal is going to change. I think how we maybe sell it or how we pitch it or how we use it is going to change, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's still a powerful tool. It might not be our only tool.
I think one of these scenarios that comes to my mind when we're talking about all this integration was the example that Dries gave at DrupalCon with ordering food through the Alexa, and basically asking Alexa if something was on sale at Trader Joe's, and basically having JSON APIs talk to each other. And when the gal at the supermarket updated the little produce and said it's on sale, that automatically sent a text. I mean, it's crazy how the world we live on is no longer just websites, right? Drupal is no longer just a website. It's got to work on your phone. It's got to work on your Well, you're watching.
Where
pointing
else,
at my watch.
Where else are we gonna? It's going into everything,
Yeah.
right? And that's the other big thing is we do a lot of medical device work, and then where do you interact with the Internet of Things, and where is it that we have to go? And okay, maybe Drupal doesn't actually show up on a device, but it is the aggregator. And then when you're trying to get in the back end and figure out where your portal, through your portal, where your customers are, where your employees are, where the new product's coming. I mean, that's another powerful tool that, or another version of Drupal that I think is under promoted and underused at this point.
But it doesn't have to be just Drupal, right? I mean, it can be anything. Like one of the things we've always been a web shop, but we're building a native app right now. We're building it with React Native. And so it's amazing how we're tying these services that started off on the web, still using web technologies to build native experiences on a mobile device, tying back into a Symfony application. Right. And so it's just amazing as developers, and this is one of the powers and the benefits of Drupal is it can act as that content store or as that integration piece that these different systems can interact with.
I think there's something to be said about how, for a while now, Drupal as a community has wanted to get off the island, right? And I think that's led a lot by how agencies have needed to get off the island in order to start integrating all of these different systems. One of the, I think, opportunities Drupal has is that with all of these integrated systems, there really isn't a leading technology that you could consider a decision engine, right? When you're talking about a unified customer experience across many different disparate, platforms, Alexa, your iOS apps, there really isn't a central hub. You either have to build one, or you have to start thinking about your digital strategy with Drupal as, kind of that hub that's gonna happen. And there's some things that I think will need to happen as far as Drupal's infrastructure in order to make that more accessible. Talking to all of these different IoT apps is, that has some performance implications if you have, a lot of traffic, right? It's no longer just page views, you got a lot of personalized content. So I think that there's going to be opportunity there as Drupal continues to evolve.
And in my mind, I think that evolution towards using Drupal as a central hub, I actually think that started happening a while back. In Drupal 7, we've been building for probably a good 2 or 3 years the concept of having, a Drupal website and then having all of your content available via web services that then get ingested into like an iOS app. So we haven't done a React Native one yet, okay, but we have done a couple systems where we used like Swift on the front end, and just normal Android development where we were basically hitting a lot of those Drupal web services. I think the movement towards 8 is making those services more of the focus, but I think that that's kind of been there for a while now, and I think that corporate executives are just starting now to understand, as you put it earlier, that it actually is a central hub. That I have a content management system that's going to manage my content, but everything else is just a display medium. Whether it is a mobile app, Facebook, you know what I mean? There's like a million different ways of consuming
it's
content.
the octopus controller controlling all the knobs.
I mean, right?
This is
look
where
at the
open source
Hollywood
fails.
Reporter. Like the Hollywood Reporter has millions of content objects, but you can look at it through normal web, you can look at it through mobile web, you can look at it through an Android device, you can look at it through anything. Like if there's a device, I'm sure the Hollywood Reporter's got a new way of looking at it that way. You kind of see what I mean, and I think that
Oculus Rift.
I don't think we have that one yet.
Proprietary software does a really good job of being everything to everybody, right? When somebody goes and pitches something for a proprietary side, they'll say yes to everything. Where in open source, we'll say, well, we do this really well, and yeah, it'll integrate, and that's no problem. But we don't sell it as the end all. Right, we sell it as it's a solid player, and this is what we can do with it, and we feel comfortable, and this is because that's just our way of approaching things.